What's going on YouTube? What's going on to my boxing fans, subscribers, and haters? Because I know I got haters that always give me 2 thumbs down. So whoever you two are, I love y'all. Keep giving me the 2 thumbs down. And what's going on to my future subs? This video is in response to one of my subs talking about how having more muscle causes you to fatigue faster. I'm going to get into where this comes from. Now, as the title says, do muscles really cause you to tire faster? My short answer is no, to those who won't stay to the end. To those who also won't stay to the end, and this is going to sound repetitive because I'll bring this back up, the whole thought behind this came from lactic acid. Where the idea of lactic acid causing muscle fatigue comes from was the scientists in the 1920s to sever dead frog legs, put them in a jar, hit them with electricity, and what he noticed was the more times he electrocuted it, the less and less they would contract. As they were contracting less and less, he saw that the oxygen inside of the blood was going down while lactic acid was building up. So what he concluded was lactic acid is created by a lack of oxygen in the blood, which causes the muscles to fatigue faster. All right, so now I'm going to read, and it's going to get into that, and then I'll bring up why that was proven not to be true, even though the lie of lactic acid just keeps being spouted out. And people believe it's true. Like they say, you tell a lie enough, people will believe it's the truth, and that's what's happened with lactic acid. You can Google this yourself by all means. So, in 1922, a Nobel Prize recipient, Otto Meyerhoff, discovered glycolysis. I'm going to get into what that is. He came to this conclusion by a jar of dead frog legs and shocked them with electricity to make the muscles contract. After a few contractions, the muscles stopped moving. He found that the muscles were bathed in lactic acid. He concluded that because the muscles had no blood circulation and therefore no source of energy, they had converted the sugary fuel glycogen into lactic acid, a process he dubbed glycolysis. Now, that's where it came from, as I stated before. That's just more detailed facts, dates, so you can look it up. Here we go. In 1970, what lactate, the starting molecule in lactic acid, really did. This was found by South African biochemist Waylon Jeevers. Showed that the reaction that produces lactate actually makes muscles less acidic, not more. And for his PhD dissertation, exercise psychologist George Brooks found that when he gave rats lactic acid, they burned it faster than any other fuel. Lactic acid wasn't a harmful byproduct of exercise, it was an energy source. So, what they concluded in these rats were lactic acid actually translated over to a fuel source like oxygen is, and it wasn't a harmful byproduct. Now we're going to move on to 1983 with another study. In 1983, study published in the Physician in Sports Medicine. Researchers and volunteers run for 45 minutes on a treadmill, once with it set level and once with it set to go downhill. They measured the volunteers' blood lactic acid concentration and asked them how sore they were before, during, and at intervals up to 72 hours after the run. The volunteers felt the sorest after running downhill, even though that was when their lactic acid levels were the lowest. Results indicate that lactic acid is not related to exercise-induced delayed onset muscle soreness, the researchers concluded. So, what they found was that when the volunteers were going downhill, they actually had the lowest level of lactic acid built up in their blood, and that's when they actually felt the sorest. So by concluding this, what they concluded was lactic acid actually helps fight soreness and fatigue. Now, these are different studies, later era, so technology was better when they concluded this. If you actually look up lactic acid and it doesn't really cause fatigue, you will see no. Now, back to the point at hand, my own thoughts. When you see guys fatigue off a muscle, in my opinion, it is no different than when you see guys fatigue off of being obese. When your muscle composition is too big for your frame and your fat composition is too big for your frame, you're carrying too much weight to move. Therefore, you are burning an excess of energy to just move your body. Now that you're burning more calories, your metabolism is burning at a faster rate. It's the weight that you're carrying that's actually causing you to tire faster, not the muscle, not the fat, because fat is actually stored up energy. But when you're obese, you can watch it right now on, like, I think it's the Learning Channel, My 600 Pound Life. You see these people 600 pounds or more, when they take 2 steps, they're out of breath. Well, that's a whole bunch of energy on their body, but why are they out of breath? You can watch bodybuilders. Like, I watched a thing with Jay Cutler. He took like 3 or 4 steps and he was already breathing heavy as he was running to jump in a swimming pool. So the thing is, in my opinion, muscles can cause you to fatigue, all right? But it's only when you have too much muscle for your body. In other words, you have to be too bulky. It's no different to be obese. To me, they're one and the same. They're in tangent with each other. If you look up muscle fatigue, muscle soreness, science at this moment don't actually know what causes it. They don't know why muscles fatigue. They don't have a biochemistry reason of what's going on. So there is no conclusion on do actually muscles cause you to tire or why muscles even tire. The bottom line is this. It's not the amount of muscle that you carry that's making you get tired unless you're overdoing it. What it is the fact of the way you train. If you're a guy who just bodybuilds, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to get tired running for 2, 3, 4 miles if you don't do it. If you're a boxer. Now, here's the problem with somebody like AJ. None of us are in the gym with him. None of us watch him train. So we don't know how much cardio he actually does with strength training. We don't even know if he really does true strength training. Just because he looks muscular, looks strong, doesn't even mean he's strong. A lot of your bodybuilders are super weak, but they look like they can move mountains. Your power lifters look like fat guys. They can actually move mountains even though they look fat, sloppy, and weak. Again, I have to keep coming back to this in every video I make about stuff like this. It's the way you train. It's just like running. If you run slow, non-stop, you can go forever in endurance. But if you race somebody who's just used to doing real quick sprints for 50 to 100 meters, then you're going to get beat in the short run. But if that sprinter never runs for, say, 1,600 meters, then he's going to get destroyed in a 1,600 meter race. It's the way you train. That's all it is. That's all it is. Yes, muscle can make you tired if you carry too much, but it will not make you tired if you train correctly and you have the right amount of weight on your frame. As far as AJ is concerned, he's 6'6". 250 pounds is a small man for 6'6". That is not a big man. He is dwarfed by other men of his size, his stature in a sport like football. I'm not saying he needs to be a Brock Lesnar in size, but what I'm saying is 250 at 6'6" is not a lot of mass. It is not that big. Thus, his muscles have nothing to do with him tiring. It is the way he trains. It is the way he prepares. Now, on the flip side of that, especially in America, you've got to understand something. The natural born God-gifted athletes are not going into boxing. They're not. They're 9 times out of 10 not even going into MMA, even though MMA has grown tremendously in America, and I know it's starting to grow in Europe and other places. Our athletes go to baseball. They go to football. They go to basketball. My point in saying this is, if you take a star NFL player, right, and you train that star as a child to go into boxing, I guarantee you he would dominate the guys that are out today, because those are the athletes that are God-given gifted. A lot of these fighters were never athletes. A lot of these fighters were never good at sports. A lot of these fighters went to fighting because they couldn't make it in sports, like a Dominic Breazeale. Dominic Breazeale, trash. Trash. Couldn't make it to the pros. Trash. But he made it to a higher level in boxing. But look at him. He's uncoordinated. He's slow. Still made it up there. And he was competitive on a college level, but on a professional level, trash. Pure trash. And look at how far he made it in boxing. My point is this. If you take them stars from basketball, if you take them stars from football, baseball, and you were to have trained them as a child up, you would see guys much better than you see guys today because they are naturally better gifted. That is why boxing does not look the same as it used to in the 70s, the 60s. We'll go back up, the 80s, the 90s. In past eras, you had guys actually going to boxing because boxing was pushed as a bigger sport than it is today. Now it's more niche to be in it. It's not on TV stations like it used to be on USA, I'm sorry. It's not on TV stations like that. You have it on Fox coming back, but it's not the same. I was watching YouTube. They had a thing called Tuesday Night Fights, which I read up on, was huge. You don't have stuff like that. Boxing isn't pushed like it used to be. So our natural born athletes that are the 1% of the population of America are not going to go into boxing. And that's the issue. That is why places like Britain have so many great fighters now, because their avenue for their athletes to go to is boxing. They love boxing over there. Thus, you're seeing a lot more European fighters than you are American, taking over all weight classes, because our athletes don't care to fight. They care to make money elsewhere. And a lot of times, like a LeBron James, they make more money doing other sports than they would in boxing. So, to me, that is why you see guys fatiguing now, especially in the heavyweights, is because you're looking at guys who would have never made it in the 60s, who would have never made it in the 70s, who would have never made it in the 80s, early 90s. You're looking at guys who would have never even been competitive because they're just not born competitive. That's the thing. That's the issue at hand. These guys today are not built the same. A prime example of this is, look at Keith Thurman versus 40-year-old Manny Pacquiao. In the 70s, you would have never seen 40-year-olds doing what they're doing today. It's because it was more competitive, because that's where your real athletes were. As the competition level goes down, people who are once from a past era can survive longer because it's a softer time. Unfortunately, it is. It's a softer time because we don't have the athletes that we once had. Our sport is not pushed like it once was. Thus, you see men tiring faster. Thus, you see men not looking as good as they did from the past because the quality of athlete is not the same. These are not born gifted athletes. They're just not. Thank y'all for watching. Let me know how y'all disagree. But this is my 2 cents on how I see it. Y'all have a good day.